of the things on the table. It's difficult to do that in this economic downturn, but I think that's one of the things they're looking at.
Do you see a need, though, to lay out at least some kind of policy statement about where you want the school system to go at a time you're having to cut so deeply into the education system?
I believe the prototypical school model that was laid out in the task force recommendations is a good, sound way to fund schools. And,
but it's not really a statement of the legislature's intent. Your action in the budget will be sort of a statement of your intent to a lot of voters. So, given that you're making those kinds of cuts, wouldn't you feel a stronger need to make a policy statement like adopting those recommendations?
Well, like I said, they're discussing that as part of the House-Senate discussions. And I believe that one is another one that's being done in a bipartisan way. There was involvement by Representative Anderson, at least on the House side, it was bipartisan.
And you've got all your former Republicans.
And I have former Republicans, Senator Tom and Jared.
What are you telling stakeholders in terms of the reality of the governor's level plus the 50%? I mean, in talking with local folks with a slice of the budget pie, I keep hearing words like this is an exercise, this is a scenario. There seems to be a skepticism that that's real, that sort of taxes will ride to the rescue. What are you telling folks?
Well, just what I said here is I'm saying the same thing to specific groups. Also inviting them to give us suggestions on ideas they have. I believe some groups that are proponents of the GAU program and very worried about the negative impact of eliminating that program are trying to look at ways where there could be some savings there and some ways to reduce without eliminating the program.
Mm-hmm. But people should.
So we're working with advocates in that regard.
People should be worried. It's real.
Yes, it's real. And we're going to start being as specific as we can about that, and also working to be cooperative between the House and Senate as we go forward. So by the time the budget comes out, major pieces of it should be already agreed to.
Senator Tom had kind of put it this way, and I wanted to see if this jives with your thinking on it, is that his thinking is kind of to be able to put together a budget that, without revenue, that you can live with such as it is, and relatively live with, if there's no buybacks from the public. And then if the public decides, okay, yes, we want to pay for that, great, but if not, you have to be able to live with it.
Absolutely, the budget we put forward will be the budget. If there's also some kind of revenue proposal put to the voters, that will also be it'll be a very clear-cut thing, this source of revenue and these kinds of education or health services, for example. And I would never presume what the outcome of an election would be in November. I've been surprised enough times since 1992 when I first started participating.
How do you, or I don't know, maybe it's hard to tell being here at the Capitol, but what is your sense of where the electorate is with the economy the way it is right now?
I get lots of communication from people, letters and emails and phone calls, and we are also going back for town hall meetings after cutoff. And so my sense is that that many families are feeling stretched financially, uncertain about their job prospects in the future, and worried about the potential effect of reductions in services on, their mother in a nursing home or their child in a special education program, or that there's a lot of widespread concern out there.
I hear a lot of rumors. I wonder if you could tell us who specifically are the big folks who are at the table thinking about revenue options as far as other non-legislative people.
And I think it's up to them to talk about who they are.
Can I go back to the Supreme Court decision today? Is it your intention to get something, a test case properly before the Supreme Court so you can be validated in your decision that they're wrong?
No, this
No.
isn't my cause in life.
No.
I'm focused in on this very challenging economic situation and how we're going to resolve it in the most responsible way we can. That's where my attention is now.
Okay. You see it as, in some ways, as a moot point because the 2 years will pass by the next session.
I still would love to see this the constitutionality of this clarified by our Supreme Court, but I am beginning to think that may not occur.
Looking at the transportation stimulus that
Yes.
the governor's going to sign. Supposedly it creates, I think, something like 20,000 jobs. What happens to those jobs after these projects are done?
Well, fortunately, because of the work that the legislature's done and the public has ratified, we will be having a major transportation construction season this summer, the biggest ever. And so the federal dollars will get things kicked off earlier, and then we should be able to move smoothly into further investments in transportation. So I believe, I can't say every person will keep every job, but there will be a lot of jobs in transportation in this upcoming season.
So this doesn't create like a transportation bubble?
I don't think it doesn't, fortunately, because we were already on the road of making these investments from the nickel project and the previous decisions that legislature and voters made.
I wanted to ask more about the conformity bill. You said that it would still keep the unemployment trust fund at a comfortable level. When
Yes.
you increased the unemployment, I think the projection was that it would get to 15 months in a best case scenario and 8 months in a worst case scenario. So how do you square that with?
Well, I don't want to get too technical here, but so you have a baseline scenario and you have a recession scenario. What they call a so-called worst case scenario is like a recession that never ends. So the so-called worst case scenario is not the way to build public policy. I think you build public policy based on looking at the baseline and looking at an economic downturn. Similarly, I serve on the State Investment Board, and we make decisions based on scenarios because you don't have any certainty. But you don't imagine the worst case scenario as the way. Worst means, the probability of that occurring is less than 5%.
But I think the worst